Time is precious. It's a resource that is tragically finite for every last one of us. Some have more than others, some have less. But no matter how much or how little of it you have, it will run out eventually. And once you're out of time, that's game over. Except not really. At least, not if you're living in the world of video games, where urgency is often more of a firm suggestion rather than a dire warning. So many times I've found myself enjoying a game, rolling through side quests, only to have the narrative beat me upside the head with an ominous reminder that if I don't hurry up and finish the main story, then there's going to be serious consequences.
At this very moment, Britannia burns.
Only for those consequences to never materialize. Or, if they do, then it was by design and was never actually preventable to begin with.
Oh God! No! I slept too long!
That's not to say there aren't games out there that actually will punish you for not doing the thing you were supposed to do in time. But for every Majora's Mask or Persona there is out there, there's dozens upon dozens of games that insist upon an almost comically intrusive false sense of urgency. From an ominous meteor looming on the horizon to someone urging you to act with great haste before Alduin, or the Oblivion Gates, or the Corpus disease brings it into the world as we know it. There's always some kind of pressing matter that spells doom for everyone that you have to hurry up and stop. And, hey, that's conflict. Every story needs some sort of inciting incident to move it forward. Some sort of larger stake that can get the player invested, and what better way to do that than by creating a sense of urgency that pushes the player into engaging with the story. Oh no, the girl you and your brother have been double-teaming just got kidnapped. Hurry up and go beat up the final boss to save her. Yeah, we know nothing is going to happen to Marion if you don't beat all the levels fast enough. She's just the end goal of a linear game where you go from one level to the next. It's a tried and true method of moving the story forward, not just in video games, but films, novels, TV shows, and Greg's D&D games, where he can't come up with a single original idea if it bit him on the ass. Yes, that's right, I am talking to you, Greg. And if you feel called out, you should. If you tell me we have to save another goddamn princess again, I'm fucking walking. Tommy and Phil agree with me, Greg. Think of something better, you fucking hack! But as video games evolved, many began to adopt a more open-ended mindset when it came to game design. Games that encourage you to stop and smell the roses and dump way more time than you're comfortable to admit playing minigames. And this open-ended philosophy paved the way for many beloved games and franchises, some of which still have a stranglehold on the industry to this day. From mission-oriented GTA-style open-world games to non-linear sandboxes where the players create their own stories not through engaging with a true narrative, but by creating one through engaging with the world itself. Even the most linear of today's games adopt at least some of these ideas, let it be side quests, challenges, optional boss fights, or whatever else they can think to cram in there. So, as games become more explorative, they often find themselves directly at odds with the urgency of their own story. How many times have you been playing a game in an open world and an NPC told you to meet them somewhere for an important mission, then finishing it with something along the lines of, "Their very lives depend on us, so be quick about it." Even though you can go and spend the next 80 hours doing every side quest in the game if you wanted to, and the mission would still go on like nothing happened once you got there. It's like there's an unspoken agreement between the game and the player, where the game refuses to acknowledge the dissonance of the situation, and in return asks the player to just play along with the story and pretend like everything is going along at a normal pace. And it's probably the correct way to do this sort of thing. If a game needs to regularly lock players out of content to make its story work, then the story itself probably needs work. A good story isn't going to be hampered by players taking hours-long breaks to collect flowers or clear out bandit camps or dive into a few side quests. A good TV show isn't made worse because you have to wait a week between episodes. So why should a single-player game require its players to move at an arbitrary pace that its developers decided on? The problematic aspects of false urgency only rears its head when a game decides that it needs to draw attention to it in moments where it's not warranted. Take the poster child of this problem, Cyberpunk 2077. This game is at its strongest when it embraces the little things. Although the game released in a state that could adequately be described as, fucked. Consistent updates and CD Projekt Red's dedication to making it into the game that players wanted it to be saw Cyberpunk become probably one of the most immersive settings of any game I've ever played. You can do almost anything in this game. You can go to bars, ride the railway, hang out with your girlfriend, hang out with your sugar daddy, hang out with the guy who immediately makes everything awkward. The sky's the limit, baby! You can even take a shower if you want. Oh. That's right. You're dying. Back in 2011, Batman Arkham City released to universal acclaim, and is widely considered the best Batman game ever made, even to this day. However, one point of criticism that has persisted over the past 15 years is the game's use of false urgency to move the plot forward. Toward the very beginning of the game, Batman gets poisoned, along with anyone in Gotham who happened to receive a blood transfusion that day, putting him on a very narrow clock to find a cure before he, along with a big chunk of Gotham, drops dead. This, in and of itself, isn't a bad idea, but its execution is very intrusive. Arkham City isn't quite what I'd call an open-world game, but it is very open-ended. There's a lot of side quests and optional content that fills out the game. But when said optional content is juxtaposed by a main story that is constantly reminding you that you're running out of time, it makes all the secondary content feel very, secondary. Like, it can wait until more pressing matters are taken care of first. Yeah, sorry Aaron, you're gonna be, walking for a little while. Those Riddler trophies, they gotta wait.
When I get out of here, I'm gonna hurt you for this. You hear me?
But of course there's no actual teeth to it. You can dick around and do whatever you want for as long as you want, and there'll be no consequences for it. But it nonetheless remains in the back of your mind throughout the entire playthrough. So nearly a decade later, CD Projekt Red decided to take that panned concept and not just double down on it, but triple down on it in every conceivable way for a game they were selling as an open world where you can do whatever you want. These two things don't go together. From the moment you finish the prologue, everything you do in the main story is motivated purely by V's desire to save themselves. And the outlook you're given out the gate is bleak.
You don't have much time left. Much life. A few weeks tops.
You see, the whole "you have 24 hours to live" thing in Arkham City might have felt pressing, but even if you treat the gameplay as occurring in real time, you're only looking at around 10 to 12 hours to beat the game. Cyberpunk, on the other hand, is an open-world game with day-night cycles. If I've only got maybe a month to live, then why am I wasting precious days helping the Aldecados with their bullshit? If I've only got
a few weeks tops
to live, then why is there an iguana egg that requires 3 in-game months to hatch? Now, you could go back to what I said earlier about the unspoken agreement between the game and the player. As long as I don't think about the dissonance between narrative and gameplay elements, then everything's fine. Right? Well, yeah. It would be if it wasn't for the fact that the game will regularly remind you about it. It's not so much that the game is telling you, "Don't make me wait," so much as the game is telling you, "Stop enjoying this fun stuff, you're going to die." It almost feels like the developers are doing a disservice to themselves. They're the ones who made all this cool optional stuff, so why does the game make me feel like I'm wasting my time by engaging with it? It, in effect, punishes you for immersing yourself in the game, and that just leaves a bad taste in my mouth, and clearly I'm not the only one who felt that way. The PC version has a 100 kilobyte mod that removes one singular line of dialogue. I'll let you guess which one.
A few weeks tops.
And it has almost 200,000 unique downloads. Think about that. Almost 200,000 people felt that removing one line of dialogue and the implications that came with it would improve their overall enjoyment of the game. And speaking as someone who used it, yeah, it really did help. But this sort of issue isn't exclusive to Cyberpunk. It's just probably the most egregious example of it. Mass Effect 3 also suffers from this issue. Kinda. The entire game is a build-up to retaking Earth from the Reapers. Everything you do, including much of the optional content, is meant to work toward that goal. Then came the Citadel DLC. Although the DLC was very well received and was a fantastic send-off for the series, it did have players posing the question of, why are we going on vacation when there is a literal extinction event happening on Earth? Well, and the whole galaxy, really. And, it doesn't help either that the DLC likes to remind you of said extinction event. But hey, check out this bitchin' pad! You wanna see how many pull-ups I can do? Similarly, the PC version also has a mod to address this. Then on the other side of this, we have games like Morrowind, where several times throughout the main quest, the game encourages you to just go out and do something else and come back later. It acknowledges the importance of the main quest, but gives the player narrative permission to go out and explore what else the game has to offer, without having to deal with that lingering feeling that you're wasting your time. I already do enough of that in my real life. I don't need my time waster telling me that I'm wasting my time. It's a small thing, but the peace of mind it grants goes a long way, and it's unfortunate that you don't see things like this very often. Maybe that's because most games don't need it. If I leave Joe NPC waiting for 7 in-game days and he acts like everything is normal when I get there, then there's not really a lot of mental gymnastics that need to go into it. Most players can just roll with it. However, if the story presents everything as ASAP, then there's not really any room to justifiably cram in someone saying, "But hey, it's okay, honey, take your time, you'll get to it when you get to it." Which is unfortunate because those are the games that tend to need something like this most. So, I guess all this begs the question of, where is that line? At what point does the dissonance between gameplay and narrative urgency become too much to ignore? As much as I would like to have the answer to that, it's an answer that's going to vary from person to person. I've met people who were not at all bothered by Cyberpunk constantly reminding the player that V is dying and just did whatever they wanted to without even thinking about it. I've also met someone who thought that the narrative of Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines was too fast-paced. So, you know, everyone can be entitled to their own opinions, I guess. Even if those opinions are wrong, fuck you, Jared. But nonetheless, it's a balancing act, and one that can often be thrown out of whack during the development process. It's easy to pivot the direction of a story midway through. I'll prove to you how easy it is right now by pivoting the direction of this video to take a moment to talk about today's sponsor. Nah. I'm just fucking with you. I don't have any sponsors. Yet. But anyways, it is not easy, however, to pivot the direction of a collective tens of thousands of man-hours spent developing a game to accommodate said new story decisions. Sometimes compromises have to be made, and the thing about compromises is that more often than not, neither side ends up truly happy with the result. So long as games continue to be developed with open-ended playstyles in mind, the dissonance will almost always be there to some extent. Even games that pride themselves on how reactive their worlds are, like Baldur's Gate 3, don't pigeonhole the player into doomed scenarios because they spent 30 hours side questing. Or if you're my wife, spending 30 hours hunting down and picking up literally every single object in the game and cramming it into our inventory. So why not just make actual doomsday clocks? Why not add real stakes to punish players who don't take the threat presented to them seriously enough? Well, that's the thing. if games are going to have hard clocks, then there need to be either escape routes or full transparency with lenient systems in place that can allow even the most casual of players to complete it with time to spare. Because despite what the sweatiest FromSoft stands will say, games do need to be accessible, at least if they want to be profitable. And besides all that, everything would have to be developed specifically with that timetable in mind. You have to ensure that every single piece of side content is able to be completed within a reasonable time frame, because nobody wants to go back and redo the previous 10 hours of gameplay because they spent too much time picking flowers for Miss Daisy. People laud Persona for its inclusion of hard deadlines, but the plain truth of it is that the only way you're going to miss those deadlines is if you actively try to fail them. Really, what you're on the clock against isn't the threat of a game over, but the threat of losing time that could be spent building your friendships. The more time you spend doing a dungeon, the less time you have to build social skills and confidant ranks. That is where the real challenge of time management comes in. One of the many things that separate video games from other forms of media is that they are intended to be experienced at the pace of the one consuming it, not at the pace dictated by the creator, and that makes them truly unique. If players get their enjoyment out of a game by exploring and doing side quests, then let them. If they get their enjoyment through rushing through the main quest, then let them do that as well. All that matters is that both routes are accessible, and both routes can be enjoyed for what they are without one trying to overtake the other, be it narratively or otherwise. Granted, this is coming from someone who primarily plays 50 to 100 hour long RPGs and tries their best to keep up with weekly videos about them. So I'm not exactly what you might call a smart person, and you should take all this with a grain of salt. All the same, the threat of imminent doom has been a mainstay in video games for decades now, and regardless of whether or not there's any teeth to those threats, they're not going anywhere anytime soon. Still, if there's one piece of advice I can give, it'd be to just enjoy games at your own pace. Some might be more accommodating to that, while others less so. What ultimately matters is that you enjoy your time. Because after all, we only have so much of it. You may as well spend it doing something you love.